Good day, students. Today we are going to discuss about the second type of permanent tissue, that is simple permanent tissue. In the previous lecture, we have started about the permanent tissue and we have discussed the brief outline of the types of permanent tissue, and we have classified the permanent tissue into two types, that is simple permanent tissue and the complex permanent tissue. And we have now discussed that the permanent tissue is made up of those type of cells which have lost the capacity to divide. And in case of simple permanent tissue, we know that they are composed of single type of cell. And in simple permanent tissue, we have discussed the protective type of simple permanent tissue, the tissue which is concerned with the function of providing protection to the plant parts, and in that we have discussed epidermis and the cuticle. And in simple permanent tissue, we have discussed the protective tissue or the dermal tissue, it can be also called as the dermal tissue. And in this we have discussed about the epidermis, the outermost single cellular layer of the plant part. We have also discussed a second type of protective tissue, that is known as cork. Now, the topic of today's discussion is the supportive type of simple tissue. Now, we are dividing these simple permanent tissue into different categories on the basis of their function. So, as the name implies, the protective tissue deals, or it is concerned with providing the protection to the plant parts. So, similarly, the supportive tissue is related with the supportive function, and it is of three types. So, its main function is to provide support to the plant part. And this supportive tissue can be further divided into three types. And these three types are parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. We will be discussing them one by one. So, first of all, what are the three types? Parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. You must have heard these terms while studying about the plant parts or internal structure of plant parts. Now let us discuss their characteristic features. So first of all, we'll discuss the parenchyma, which is an example of supporting type of simple permanent tissue. It is the most fundamental type of simple permanent tissue, or we can say it is the most abundant type of simple permanent tissue. And the parenchymatous cells have thin cell wall. They are made up of cells which have thin cell wall. And if we talk about the composition of the cell wall of a parenchymatous cell, the cell wall is mainly composed of cellulose and pectin. So this cell wall is further simple type of cell wall which is composed of cellulose and pectin. Besides this, the parenchymatous cells have a large central vacuole, and that is meant for the storage of food and water. So these cells have large central vacuole for storage of water and food. So the parenchymatous cells, besides providing support, their main function is food storage. So the supporting function is secondary role, or we can say its participation in supporting the plant is very less. Its main function is food storage. Now, the parenchymatous cells are further of two types on the basis of their specific characteristics. One is the chlorenchyma and the other is parenchyma. So, types of parenchyma. It includes chlorenchyma. As we can see in the name, chlorenchyma is that type of parenchyma which contains chloroplast. So, the cells of chlorenchyma contain chloroplast. So, since they contain chloroplast, and we all know that chloroplast is related with the function of photosynthesis. So, main function of chlorenchyma is to perform photosynthesis. And if we talk about their location, the chlorenchyma is mainly present in the mesophyll of leaf. Mesophyll is the tissue present in the leaf besides below the epidermis, and this mesophyll is made up of chlorenchymatous type of parenchyma, and that is mainly concerned with the function of photosynthesis. Now we can clearly understand that why the leaves are concerned mainly with the photosynthesis process, because they contain the chlorenchymatous cells, that is chloroplast containing parenchymatous cells. Now the second type, special type of parenchyma is called as parenchyma. This is a type of parenchymatous tissue, or these parenchyma consist of parenchymatous cells which are provided with air spaces. So the parenchyma can be defined as parenchyma which is containing air spaces. In case of parenchymatous tissue, there are large intercellular spaces or air spaces which are present between the parenchymatous cells, and these specialized type of tissue are called as the parenchyma because they have air spaces. Now, their main function is to provide buoyancy, and these parenchymatous tissues are found mainly in the hydrophytes. The plants which are found in water are called as hydrophyte. So we can clearly understand that these parenchymatous tissue provides buoyancy to these hydrophytes, that are the plants growing in the water bodies, and thus they can easily float or keep up in the water bodies. They do not get submerged, they do not get drowned because of these parenchymatous tissues. Now we will see the diagrammatic representation of the parenchymatous tissue. These are roughly spherical cells, and in between the cells intercellular spaces are present. So they are not a compact tissue like the meristematic tissue, which is a very compact tissue because the air spaces are absent between the cells. The green boundary of the cell represents the thin cell wall, which is made up of cellulose and pectin. And as I have mentioned that these parenchymatous cells have a large central vacuole. So the cytoplasm is just present as a thin peripheral layer. Most of the space of the cell is occupied by a central large vacuole. Below the cell wall is present the cell membrane. See, all the cells similarly contain cell membrane. I am drawing it in the 3 cells only. Now, the nucleus is present in this peripheral layer of cytoplasm. For representation, I am drawing the complete cell for only these 3 cells, and in between the cells, the intercellular spaces are present, as I mentioned. So, this is the thin primary wall made up of cellulose and pectin. It also contains pectin. This is plasma membrane or cell membrane. This is the central large vacuole. That is mainly concerned with the function of storage, and this is the nucleus present in the peripheral layer of cytoplasm. These are the intercellular spaces, and we can see this is a complete parenchymatous. So this is the diagrammatic representation of the parenchymatous tissue. Now, if we talk about the chlorenchyma and parenchyma, they can be represented as follows. They can be rounded or the elongated cells containing large central vacuole, plasma membrane, peripheral layer of cytoplasm containing nucleus. Besides nucleus, this cytoplasm also contains the numerous organelles which are called as chloroplast, which are mainly concerned with photosynthetic function. So it contains numerous organelles. So the difference between a normal parenchymatous cell and chlorenchymatous cell is that they contain chloroplast. So remaining labeling is same except for one thing, that they contain chloroplast. So this is chlorenchyma. Now the third type is parenchyma. In this, the parenchymatous cells are arranged such that they contain large intercellular spaces which are called as air spaces. The normal structure of the parenchymatous cell is same as that we have discussed earlier. So we are not drawing the complete cell internal structure, we are just drawing the outer representation of the cell, which are enclosing large intercellular spaces, which can be called as the air spaces. So we can clearly see that this is a parenchymatous cell containing large intercellular spaces which are called as air spaces. And this is the representation of air.